Hey guys, I'm Caitlin for Caitlin and Jazz Books, and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. I read so much in January. I always read loads in January. I think I've read the most that I've ever read. Last year I read like 11 books, but I read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, so I counted each novella as a book. This year I read 10, and I mean, like, I'm proud. So yeah, I'm just going to get straight on into it. Also, I just want to show you my new book of books that I got. My other one is here and it's completely full. So I've had that one for like 4 or 5 years. So now I've got this one. It says Little Book of Big Ideas. These are all the books I read. Well, I'm just going to get on into it. The first book that I read was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which I gave 4 stars out of 5. I wrote a little Goodreads review, so I'm going to be using my Goodreads as a guide. So this book is about two boys, one's called Mato and one's called Rufus, and they both get a call from this thing called Deathcast, which is basically like telling you that you're going to die that day, and they both meet up with each other as a last friend, so they spend their last day together. It was really cute, but I had one issue with it, and my issue was that the situations that these characters were put in were just simply because they'd been called by Deathcast that day. So surely they would not have died if Deathcast had not called them, because they wouldn't have been in the situations that killed them. Do you get me? I think I'm probably just reading too much into that, but it was irritating me. But I did like it. This book's one of those like floppy books which you can just sort of hold open, and it was making me happy. And so yeah, this is the first book that I read in January. The second book that I read in January was The Kill Order by James Dashner, which is the first prequel of the Maze Runner series. My friend gave me this and then she's let me keep the book, and oh, what a babe. Anyway, yeah, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. This book is basically when the flare, which is the virus in the Maze Runner, when the flare first started, it's how the flare started and the first group of people who had to deal with the flare and the fallout of the flare, and it was interesting to see that. I mean, I didn't like the characters that much, and also I found that the writing was quite juvenile, and I'm not sure if that was the same with the other books, or if I'm just noticing now because I read The Maze Runner 3 years ago and now I'm reading this, and it's like, oh, maybe it's slightly more juvenile than I remember it being. Also, the other issue I had with it is the fact of how Thomas and Teresa, who are 2 of the mains from the Maze Runner, were brought into this. They were in the prologue and then they didn't show up again until the end. And I'm going to do my best not to spoil this, so I will avoid, I'll just say certain events. So yeah, I spent like the whole time reading this like theorising where they could be and who they are. So my main theory was that the 2 characters in this, Mark and Trina, were Thomas and Teresa, but then they got taken by Wicked and got messed around within the head and put up into the maze, but then that wouldn't work because this was set 13 years or 12 years? This book was set 13 years earlier, so it wouldn't work, and I was like, no, that can't be right. And then there was this girl called Dee Dee, who got brought into it. And my other theory was that she was Teresa. And then I was like, okay, so if that's Teresa, then where's Thomas? Where's he coming in? And I mean, they do come in again in the end, but that's basically it. And I don't know, I just sort of felt like the whole time, instead of enjoying the story, I was just like, where are they? The third book I read in January was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which I'm sure many of you are very glad that I've read now. I gave this 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. I didn't like this as much as I thought I was. I found the first 100 pages to drag a lot, and this is basically about 6 dangerous outcasts and 1 impossible heist. I feel like I probably should have read the Shadow and Bone trilogy first, just because she didn't do any world building in this book. I feel like she probably did all her world building in the original trilogy, and then was like, they know the world now, I don't need to explain it. And I was sitting there like, what do all of this stuff mean? I was so confused. I was going to give this about 3.5 stars, but the last 100 pages really picked up, so I bumped up to a 4 just because I enjoyed them more. My camera cut out yesterday when I was filming this, and I filmed all of it, and it was so long and I was so happy with it, but it cut out on the 3rd book and I didn't realise. So now here I am going back at it. So I was talking about Six of Crows, and I was saying how I bumped up the star rating to 4 stars because I really enjoyed the last 100 pages, and then I just went on to say that the faults that I had with the book were faults of my own, so yeah, okay. The next book I read was for school, and I'm trying to do like a classic of the month or something that's not YA or young adult, it's like something slightly older. So I did this one, and I read St Joan by George Bernard Shaw, which is a play, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this actually. I did my performance of it 2 days ago, so yeah, I did this monologue here, the one that's nice and annotated. It's based on Joan of Arc, who's this 17-year-old girl who believes in God so much, and she has voices in her head which she believes are saints talking to her, and people don't believe her, and people think she's crazy, and people think she's blaspheming and all that jazz. And yeah, it's really good. It's like her bravery is insane. Like, I'm 16 and I'm almost 17, so to put myself into like her head and be like, whoa, she's doing all this stuff, I wouldn't even dream of it. I wouldn't even dare, because I'd be like, nah, they'd kill me. So I'd be like, no, it's fine, I'll just stay back here and do what I'm supposed to. But she doesn't, and it's great, and I love her. And yeah, I'm gonna go through these quickly because this video is gonna be long. Next book I bought and read within the same, 3 days? 2 days? Lol. And I bought it because the film's coming out soon, so I want to read it, and that is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertelli. This is another floppy book, and I love it so much. This book I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Again, the first like 50 to 100-ish pages took me a while to get into, but once I got into them, I read this in a day. This is basically about a closeted gay boy called Simon who is messaging someone online who goes by the codename Blue, and they don't know who each other is, and it's basically him trying to figure out who Blue is and coming out to his family, and it's really cute, and I love it so much. And yeah, also it's told within like, let me see if I can find it, it'll be like a chapter of emails and then a chapter of just like normal book, and it's great. I love this so much. But yeah, the faults that I had with it was that the first like 100 pages were quite slow, and also I felt like she was swearing for the sake of swearing. Like, she was swearing so much. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the cleanest of mouths when it comes to swearing, but she was swearing like every other line, and I was like, okay. Then the next book I read was actually a sequel. I know, I read the sequel. Usually I read the first books and I'm like, that's enough of that series now, unless I love it. But I actually wanted to continue on with this series, and my grandparents got it for me for my birthday last year, so I wanted to read it before my birthday this year, and that is Perfect by Cecilia Ahern, which is the sequel to Flawed by Cecilia Ahern. And Flawed is about this society in which everyone is perfect, and if you do something wrong then you're branded flawed and you are given this F mark. It's branded into your skin, so like with a hot poker, and I think there's 5 places where you can be branded, and it's about a girl called Celestine North who gets branded the most flawed person in the world, and all because she helped, I'm not really sure if it says, she did something which was, she believed was right, which was in human nature, it's right to do what she did, but because of the society, she was branded flawed. And this book is basically about her trying to demolish the government, because obviously the government is very flawed in itself, and this book really plays on the fact of what is perfect and what is flawed, what is it to be perfect, and I really enjoyed this, and I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. So far this is like my highest rated book, and yeah, I loved this book a lot, and I'm surprised. But yeah, and also again, I flew through this, like I read it in 3 days or 2 days, and it's quite long. It's like 400 pages or something, but yeah. The next book I read was an ARC when I got it. Not an ARC anymore. It was Nyxia by Scott Rentgen. Really can't pronounce his name. And it came out in September 2017, and yeah, this is, again, another floppy book! I used to hate floppy books, but now I'm kind of feeling it. Also, I have this bookmark of Nyxia, which I used with it. But yeah, this book is basically a sci-fi book, and it's the first, like, proper sci-fi book I've ever read, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, again, because I found this much was quite like it dragged a bit, and then this much I flew through it. And it's about a boy called Emmett who gets chosen to go up into space with this company called Babel Communications, I think. And he gets chosen with 14, I want to say, other people. I can have a look. La 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 la. With 10 other people, so 9 other people including him. He was the 10th. Okay. So there's 10 people up on this spaceship, and basically they're travelling to this other country, which I can't remember what it's called, but they're travelling to this other country, other world, other planet even, and basically upon that planet there's this a substance called Nixia, which is basically very, very valuable, and it can do anything. You can change you can, oh my god, what is the word? Manipulate it with your mind. And basically they're up on this spaceship, they're fighting for the 8 spaces, which there's 10 of them, and they're fighting for 8 spaces which are going to go onto the new planet. And basically they're learning how to manipulate Nixia, and they're just fighting for the spots. Wow, that was so fragmented with how I described that. The next book I actually listened to an audiobook, and it was also a reread because I'm doing a reread of the Mortal Instruments series. So I listened to City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, which is book 2 in the Mortal Instruments series. I give this 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. Flipping love this series. This is, I'm not going to say what the Mortal Instruments is about because everyone knows what it's about by now, and this video is already quite long. But this book definitely isn't my favourite within the series. It's kind of like a filler book. Well, it's not really a filler book. Like, things happen, but nothing major happens. And also, rereading it, you notice things which you didn't notice to start with. And the whole thing with Clary and Jace, like, it's irritating me so much because Jace is just there like, I love her, but she's my sister. And I'm like, Jace! The next book that I read was A Certain Age by Rebecca Ray, which I found on my dad's shelf, actually. And in it, it had the paper cutting as to when he found the book, which was in October 1998. So, yeah. And I read this, and I used that as the bookmark. This book I would not recommend to anyone under 15, but I did really like it. I gave it 3 stars, and it's about a girl who you never actually find out her name, which kind of irritated me because I feel like you can't get fully attached to a character unless you know their name, you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, it's about a girl who is, her family's not that happy, like her parents fight a lot and she doesn't really get on with them. Like, she kind of presents that she does get on with them, but when you get further into the story you sort of realise that she really doesn't, and that she's not happy with where she is, what she's doing, who she's with. Anyway, yeah, so when she's 14 she gets into a relationship with a 27-year-old man, and what I like about this book is that Rebecca Ray doesn't like present this as a loving relationship. She definitely shows that it's like a paedophile like preying on her, and she never says that they're like in love, and she doesn't romanticize any of it. And also, like, there are sex scenes in here, which is why I wouldn't recommend it to anyone under 15, but yeah, she doesn't like make them seem loving. She shows them how they are and how they would be, if you get what I mean. But I did really enjoy this book, actually, more than I thought I would, and I'm glad I read it because it was my dad's. The final book I read, I didn't actually start this month. I started it months ago, but we finished it this month. It was a book for school. And it was Othello by William Shakespeare, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I flippin' love Shakespeare, and this is my 2nd or 3rd Shakespeare book that I've like completed reading, and I've got Midsummer's Night Dream, which I want to read as well. So I've read Macbeth. Yeah, I've read 2. I've read Macbeth, and now I've read Othello, and now I want to read Midsummer's Night Dream, which is actually my favourite. I've seen it a couple of times and I love it so much. But yeah, I want to read a lot of his books, but plays even, and I really like him, and I know most people don't, but I feel like once you get into it and once you figure out what the language means, then his plays are really like intricate, and they're really interesting, and his characters are great, and it just takes a little while, like you have to understand the language, but then once you're there you're fine. And yeah, this one's all nice and annotated and all that jazz. Also, there's like loads of pictures, and do you know what excited me when we first watched it? Someone from Game of Thrones is in it. The woman who plays Catelyn Stark, she's in it. Yeah, she played Amelia, who's like my favourite character. Anyway, yeah, I've rambled on about this enough now, so we're going to move on. So yeah, guys, that was my wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment and subscribe, and comment down below what you read in January, and someone will see you next time. Bye, guys!